Driving all down the broken road, I call on you to help me carry the load. Oh Lord, you never let me down.
Thank you for joining us today. Anything you hear in this podcast is not to be taken for medical advice. This podcast is for information purposes only, and should you find something interesting in the information spoken about, please consult your physician further.
Hello, and welcome to the Broken Road Project podcast. I'm your host, Trent Peterson. Today, I'm joined by my friends, Cisco and Melissa Gonzalez. How are you doing, guys?
Good. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. We're going to try to get through this today without me bumbling the whole way through it, but we'll see what happens. So, really glad y'all came on today. Cisco, you've been through a lot. You had an ischemic stroke. You had a fall in the hospital, which ended up resulting in an emergency craniotomy. And you have lost some things. You have some deficits. And Melissa, you've been right there beside him through this whole journey. And I'm sure it's not been easy. So I just wanted to kind of start today and let Cisco kind of tell us who you were before all this happened. You know, what were you doing and what was life like for your family?
Yeah, sure. So I guess just immediately before the stroke, probably about a year before or so, I got a job. I was working with Charles Schwab with their banking department. And that was my first like real big boy job where I was working in a more corporate environment. And so I was doing that, mostly work from home, 2 days from home, 2 days at the office. And it was good. I liked it. You know, I felt like we were kind of finally gaining traction as far as like financially and just career wise, like actually getting somewhere. Before I was just doing a lot of like landscape and tree jobs, which I liked, but it just wasn't going to get me to where we really wanted or needed to go. And so that was good, but you know, the schedule was kind of weird at my Schwab job, and I was working Sunday through Thursday. I started in the afternoon sometime at 2 or something like that. Yeah. And so we were able to go to church, but I had to like run home pretty much immediately after to get back in time to start work. And then I work Wednesday nights as well. And then that, you know, hindered me from going to small group and or the kids going to youth group. So, you know, we were kind of getting there, but weren't all the way there yet. We just started a new church a little bit prior to that, and we were kind of starting to get involved in that and wanted to do more things, but my job was hindering that again a little bit. And then this just happened. This stroke just happened literally out of nowhere. And then from that day, March 10th, 2024, I haven't worked or driven since. So it's definitely changed our lives. I would say mostly for the better, honestly. You know, as much as that first 6 months to a year, especially, were really hard trying to just rehab, her taking care of me, and being really unsure and uncertain about what was going to happen, how I was going to look, what was I going to be able to do, not do, all of that. But honestly, you know, when it's all said and done, we were able to get involved in our church a lot more. The kids were able to go to youth group a lot more. And the Lord has really just opened some insane doors that honestly we never even really thought about. Really, we never thought it was possible, never really entered our mind. You know, that summer, was it 2025? That was last year. 2025, we were able to go on a mission trip together for the first time in our marriage, you know, of almost 25 years. And that was amazing, insane. Again, something that never really thought of, that we wanted to do or could do, but the Lord just opened the door, just paved the way for that in just amazing ways. And it's just amazing to see what the Lord has done these last 2 years.
So how many kiddos do y'all have? I know you got some kids.
Yeah.
4.
You have 4. Wow.
With 4.
So is that including Cisco, or is that
Yeah, five with me for sure, especially for
Okay.
6 months.
All right,
I
well,
was like,
I just wanted to clarify. Amber says it's like raising 2 boys with me in the house too. So I get that. So it sounds like y'all were fairly active, had a lot of things going on, a lot of things on your plate. Was there stress kind of during that time before the stroke? You look like you're in really good shape right now. And I mean, was there stress involved, would you say, at that time? I know there was for me.
I think so. He was not sleeping much. That was, I think, probably a big factor in how he ended up getting the stroke, because health wise, he was in amazing shape, like worked out every day. His shifts would start at 1 or 2 in the day, and then he wouldn't be done until like midnight. And
Wow.
when he was working at the office, it was a good probably 30 minutes away from where we live. So he wouldn't get home and, settled until 1. And he wasn't really like wiring down until 2 or after.
Yeah.
And then he was up at 7 every day.
Yeah.
Taking our kids to school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So literally running on
4 or 5 hours of sleep, Yeah. And I was, a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of, alcohol before I went to bed to try to help me go to sleep, and nicotine during the day, and, all that stuff just kind of added up, just piled up, and, brought me to where I'm at. Like I said, I can't pinpoint one thing or the other that I was doing that caused this, but I feel like just an accumulation of a bunch of different things, all piled up and got me to where I'm at. So
Yeah. So I feel like we're pretty close to the same age. How old are you?
46 now. I had my stroke when I
Okay.
was 44.
Yeah. So, and the reason why I asked that is because I think that's an important thing for people to understand also, is not that we're as young as we were, but we're pretty young. And the same as it's like, yeah, I'm not having a stroke right now. I'll work out. I'm busy. I felt like I was in what would almost be my second prime. Like everything was kind of rolling and smooth, and, God had other plans, obviously, for both of us.
Yeah.
And the other thing you said that I'm kind of still thinking about was that your life's better now than it was even before, which is an amazing thing. And I totally understand that feeling. So I know just from us visiting it a little bit that you don't remember. There's a lot of sections you don't remember, and I'm hoping that Melissa can kind of fill us in on those. But before the actual trauma, do you remember kind of that day and things happened then? Do you remember any of that?
Man, I remember it happened on a Saturday. I worked at the restaurant I was working at that morning. I didn't really feel anything out of the ordinary. I think I do remember one time I got like a weird kind of dizzy spell, but it came and went pretty quick. I didn't really think too much of it. Worked, did my thing, came back, made dinner. It was a pretty normal day. And then honestly, the next thing I remember was waking up in the hospital like a month later, or however long after it was, and just like asking Melissa probably for the 7th or 8th time, like, what happened? Why am I here? And so that's all I really remember. Melissa obviously, you know, fortunately and unfortunately remembers a lot more, remembers all the other details.
Well, then let's just shift to Melissa a little bit on this part and kind of get it from your point, Melissa, of that day and what happened.
Yeah, so I had been working that day. He was working. So we didn't see each other till, that evening. And it wasn't, it was very normal. He was a little like quiet. moody, I would say, but nothing like out of the ordinary. And then, we ate dinner. We probably watched a show. I don't really remember. And then we went to bed. And so it actually happened Sunday morning. His stroke. He woke up at around 5:30 in the morning to go to the bathroom. And I, woke up a little bit like when he got up, but I, he used the restroom, came back, and I just had, I don't know, like I was still kind of in that between sleep and not fully awake. But I just sensed like something was not right. I don't know why, like he wasn't doing anything to make me think that, but so I kind of put my hand on him and, I was like, "Are you okay?" And he said, I'm just so dizzy. And I was like, well, that's weird. But at that, again, didn't really think too much of it. And I don't know, maybe a minute or so later, he all of a sudden just was like, my head is killing me. And he was getting like more upset. So I was waking up more and I'm like, are you like, what's going on? It was dark, so I couldn't really see him. But then he just started like sobbing, crying, which is not normal whatsoever. And I was just like, what is happening? Like, coming out of a deep sleep, like I was just so disoriented, like trying to wrap my head around like what was going on. Like my family has had cancer, we've had heart issues. We've never like strokes are not something I was familiar with at all.
Right.
So that was not even a thought in my brain of what was going on. I knew something was happening, but I was just really confused. Obviously, he was too, and so I was like, "Do I need to call 911?" And he said yes, which he never like that would have been
Right.
like I would
I'm
have
right.
to. He never went
I'm
to a
right there with
doctor.
you.
Like that would be the last thing he would want. So I called, 911, and she's asking me questions. And by that time, I think like during at the beginning of the phone call, I had my arm on him because he was like thrashing and like shaking so bad. I was afraid he was going to fall off the bed. But again, I couldn't see because I hadn't turned the light on. But I kind of wonder if he had a seizure at that point, because then he just went like completely still. And, so the operator is asking me questions, and it probably took the ambulance maybe 10 minutes to get there. At that point, he was really calm. He was still saying that his head was hurting and he was dizzy, but he was, like calmed down at that point. And, so the EMTs are here and they're asking him questions and he's answering, and it almost like he looked fine. There was none of the telltale signs of a stroke. He didn't have any paralysis, and his face wasn't drooping, like nothing. You'd look at him and you would think he was absolutely fine. So they went to have him stand up to get on the gurney to take him in the ambulance. And when he went to stand up, he completely collapsed. And the EMT caught him and just looked at me like, what was that? And I was like, I don't know. So that was really the only, I guess, sign that something was very wrong, was when he tried to stand up and take a step. I met them over there. They did a CT scan, and they didn't find anything. She ended up saying he had vertigo, which made no sense to me because I'm like, he's never had vertigo ever. Like I've had vertigo and I've never been sobbing, crying over a headache with, I was just like, this is not vertigo. But she insisted. I asked for an MRI. She, assured me that it wasn't needed, that the CT scan would have picked up anything that an MRI would have at that point. And she said the next step would be a lumbar puncture. And he heard that and was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. So, she was like, that would tell us if there was a brain bleed, but, she didn't think that he had one. He was very confused at that point. And I think that was maybe why I didn't push so much, because, again, I was really unaware of what was happening. We all were, but he was very much downplaying what had happened that morning. Right. I know now because he was already forgetting like what had happened, but I didn't know that then. And so I would, she would ask him like, okay, how was the headache? Like, was it really strong? He's like, no, it's just a little. I'm like, you were crying. Like, it was not just a little headache. So that definitely contributed to them misdiagnosing him. So anyway, they sent him home. As we tried to leave the hospital, I had him sit up in the bed and he just completely collapsed forward like a doll. Like had no, like, not even strength, just like capacity to hold himself. Like,
his brain wasn't operating properly at that point.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, I can't just like take him out to the car. So I had went and got a nurse, and she brought in a wheelchair. And again, we tried to get him to sit up and he collapsed forward. So we're, literally taking his entire body weight, like dead weight, and trying to get him into the wheelchair. And I'm just looking at her like, you're seriously going to send him home? Like, how? But she did. We literally like had to roll him into the car. Just ridiculous. I don't know how they would send someone home in that state, but they did. And thankfully I have, our two older boys they were, probably 18 and 19 or
20 and 19.
20 and 18 at the time. So thankfully I had, bigger people at my house to help get him in the house when I got here. And he just went to bed. He couldn't eat. He would get up to go to the bathroom. But that was it. Like, he was just in bed, shades drawn, like wouldn't really open his eyes. So, they were like, if he gets worse, just bring him back. So the next day, then I was like, got no sleep that night. Terrified. He was, I don't know. I knew something was very, very wrong. So the next day, his brother, who thankfully lived close by, he came over to help me basically force him to go back to the hospital. And at that point, he was okay with it again, which told me something was very, very wrong. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. And so we went back, and that was probably, I don't know, around noon or so the next day. So at this point, it's been well over 24 hours since he had the stroke. They finally get him in, and it was a nurse practitioner. She looks in his ears and she's like, oh, he has an ear infection. She's like, there's so much inflammation on his
ear canal.
Yeah, it was the side of his stroke. She's like, there's so much redness and inflammation in here. He's had it's an ear infection and he has vertigo. So we'll get him on antibiotics. So when he would try to stand up, he had no muscle
strength.
Yeah.
Structure.
Well, that's like
when he was in the bed.
That's the very first one is balance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead. I'm
and that
sorry.
was the only one that he had, because laying down, they would try, doing the muscle, having him push and all that, and it was fine. So anyway, so she said it was a ear infection. We were like, his brother was with me, and we were laughing. We were just like, what in the world? Like, this is so weird, but very relieved too, I guess, at the moment, even though it didn't. I'm just like, he's never had an ear infection, like not once in our 23 years of marriage, like at that point. I'd never known him to even have an earache. So she leaves, and about 5 minutes later, a doctor comes in, and just the whole mood in the room completely shifted. So they had done at that point a CT scan with contrast when we first got there. That's what they had done. So in that span of time, she said he had an ear infection. The doctor read the CT scan. She came in and she's like, he had a stroke. And it was just so like discombobulating because we went from it being very lighthearted and laughing to it was extremely serious, extremely fast. She was like, we're going to have him life flighted to, she said Plano at first, but they ended up sending him to Fort Worth. The helicopter's on its way here. We're going to give him Valium. I don't know what the Valium was for, honestly, but
Probably to chill him out for the helicopter ride.
he was very chill. Doesn't remember any of it. I mean, fortunately, he says unfortunately. So it's still, it was just like, what is happening? His stroke was it was a cerebellar stroke, basically in the brainstem. It was also in a very small vein, like deep inside. So to this day, I have heard very conflicting things on the MRI that the MRI would have shown it. I was told by one person that it wouldn't have shown, but everyone else has said it would have.
So we're back at the hospital. They have actually finally said, yes, there was a stroke and things have changed. Now you're going into that super rapid motion where you're having to make some decisions.
Yeah. So they're, taking him to downtown Fort Worth. That was
It's okay.
one of the worst moments. Having them we walked out to go meet them down there and we saw him, could see them like load him up in the helicopter and take off. And thank God his brother was there. Literally held me together at that point, or at that moment, because it just felt like the entire world just collapsed. And I don't know if I would even had the ability to drive myself home at that point. So, and for him too, like this is his older brother. So it was a really awful moment. And so we came home and I had to tell the kids what was happening. Again, like how do you tell your kids? And then him and I drove down to Fort Worth, and he was in the ER at that point when we got there. They had, were waiting to get him into the ICU or to see if he needed to be admitted into the ICU, I think, or something. I can't recall exactly. I knew the doctor at the first hospital had told me that, the type of stroke that he had was very deadly, but also had the highest chance of recovery. If they make it through because of where it is located, the swelling and the inflammation. At any point, if it gets too much, it will cut off. Like
it controls everything in the body.
Yeah,
I had a brainstem stroke
breathing
as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was very terrifying to know that he's just, laying there in bed, the inflammation's getting worse and worse, and there's been no intervention at this point. And it wasn't coming, within the next couple hours. And so that was very scary.
I know that's a lot right there. Just to kind of pause on that for a minute. You said it was more than 24 hours. So I'm guessing at this point, you're sitting there wondering, why aren't you doing something? The medical professionals are sitting there discussing, okay, well, it's taken too long now. So they're trying to decide what they're going to do.
Anything. I remember them saying that, like, in the first hospital, she did say that, like, we're well past the window to be able to prevent anything. Like, it's going to be it'll be a while before we can see what damage is permanent, but there is going to be permanent damage. The damage done is done. So I do remember her saying that. I don't think they ever gave him the what they
clot
usually
busting medication.
Yes. But I do think they gave him something. I just don't know what.
Well, that's okay. Either way, I think you painted a very clear picture of what that moment was like. And, Cisco, you don't remember that, but I think it's really important. It's something that we're really trying to start highlighting. And I'm excited to have this conversation with y'all and to hear your side, Melissa, because there is so much going on, even for Amber. Everybody has different lifestyles, but Amber's lifestyle was, she was a career person, but she was also a mom, and she took care of that side of things. So in an instant, that all changed, and she was making decisions that normally I would be the person to make.
Yeah.
That's a lot to put on anybody. And I'm sure for Cisco, that's a hard thing even today, probably, to still think about those moments when you're never alone, but you do feel very alone there, even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah.
There's just a moment where it's like, God, please save my person.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody, please tell me what is going on.
Yes.
That is so common. Medical professionals, whether they were totally handling their business or not, are in the middle of trying to save a life. They forget sometimes that is somebody's father and husband, and there's a mother and wife. They forget that dynamic. So, what a day. What a man. So I know there's more to this story. Kind of what happened after that. I mean, if you don't mind, let's pick it back up. I know at this point Cisco can't say anything. He's not talking to you.
I'll let it. I'm. When she tells these stories, it sounds like she's talking about somebody else, because I honestly don't remember any of that.
I think it's really important to hear the story. So at this point, we're back in the. We're waiting to get a room or getting into the ICU. They're discussing what they're going to do, but they haven't really done a whole lot. And you're wondering what's next.
Yeah. And at that point, like, no one was telling me anything. Like, I couldn't even find a nurse in the ER to, I'm like, are we, like, did they forget about him? It was at that length of time where I'm just like, do they know we're here? So eventually they got him into, I think it was probably like middle of the night. It was. My brother had come down at that point and was with me. He stayed with me that first night in the ER, or in the ICU, as they were getting him settled. And, again, it was just like, just very surreal. Like, I can't even describe when something so sudden like that happens. I mean, you guys know. And I was thinking about it that night too, just like, this is like car accident, just something so out of the blue. There's no warning. There's no, like, there's nothing to prepare you for that.
No.
Just your world.
It's unimaginable.
It is. And it takes a long time to wrap your head around, to even, like, really believe what is happening. So I was very much in that state, for a long time, but I just really, that night was just like how she did not understand. And I believe it was the next day, he was rapidly declining, like, mentally and cognitively. At first, it was kind of like, he's really funny. So At first it was coming out as him being like kind of silly, but then we really quickly were like, this is not like, this isn't him being silly. Like he was just saying the most off the wall things. And then it got really terrifying. The neurosurgeon had come in and told me that, the next plan was to insert an EVD. I don't remember the full name of it. We just always referred to it as the EVD. And so that was the next like step, intervention, I guess. And she said at that point, he didn't need it. Like he was looking great. So it went from that to within like hours of him being completely mentally just gone. He was trying to get up out of bed like every other minute, to go to the bathroom, to go to work. He was like answering imaginary phone calls from his job. Like
Wow.
it was almost like a broken, like a malfunctioning computer, where he was like doing in and out orders and taking orders at the restaurant, answering phone calls. Like it was just the weirdest, like wildest thing to see, like what happens with the brain when it's not doing well. Thankfully, his family never really saw that. That was getting progressively worse and worse. And so they finally decided, okay, we're going to, do the EVD. And like all the family arrived, his family arrived during that procedure. And once that procedure was done, he was like, it was like night and day difference. I think his eyes were what were bothering him the most, but he couldn't really pinpoint that.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like I missed something in there, but you said he had an ischemic stroke, correct?
Yeah.
But somewhere along the line, something's changed a little bit, because if there's swelling in the brain, that means there's something else going on, right?
The EBD was after your fall. That's right. Sure. Okay. So the first day in ICU, I believe, was when my family arrived, because my sisters were there to see like his cognitive decline. He was getting worse and worse throughout the day. First day in ICU. That evening, I had spent the entire time trying to keep him in the bed. Like he just was like, I need to go to the bathroom. I need to go where I'm like, you can't get up. Like you're going to topple over. You cannot get up. And he was just very agitated at that point. Like cognitively, he wasn't gone. He was just very agitated and didn't really understand that he couldn't just get up and go.
Right.
So I was literally like sitting right next to him and like having to force him back in the bed every other minute. And this was all evening long. So the night nurse comes in, and it was the same nurse as his first night in the ICU. Really sweet guy. But he was getting like, you could tell he was the only male nurse on the floor. And he was constantly being like pulled by, oh, I need you, can you come help with this? Can you come do this? Anyway, so he was just in and out. And it was after midnight, and I was exhausted from just trying to keep him in the bed so he wouldn't fall. And the nurse came in. He was like, you need to go get some sleep. And I was like, okay, but this is what I'm dealing with. Like, I know you haven't been in here long enough at all today to see what is happening. And I explained to him very clearly, like, this is what's going on. This is what he's doing. I feel like I can't leave, because if I leave, he's going to get up. No one's going to see him, and he's going to fall. And he was like, no, like that is not on you. You can go. He's like, there's an alarm on the bed. The second he tries to get up, it's going to go off. We will get in here before he gets anywhere. Like, reassured me over and over he was going to be fine. And I was like, and unfortunately, I believed him. So my family had rented an Airbnb really close to the hospital. So I was like, I'll just go get like a few hours of sleep, and then I'll, be back. So I get over there and around 6:30, I get a phone call and I was asleep, so I missed it. And I woke up, a little bit after that. And the voicemail was him telling me that Cisco had gotten up and had fallen during the night. So I called and, frantically trying to get ready to get back over there. And I'm calling them and they're like, we asked him if he hit his head. He said he didn't. So we did a CT scan on his hip because that's where he was lying on, but his hip is okay. And I was like, did you do one of his head? And they were like, well, no, because he said he didn't hit his head.
Whoever takes the word of the patient that has
Exactly.
That is
zero
so
memory.
ridiculous.
That was literally the issue. Was I would tell him you can't get up, and then 30 seconds later he'd forgotten that he can't get up. So I'm like, he doesn't he wouldn't remember, and who knows how long he'd been laying there by the time they found him. And so I got there, found out that he had gotten up 37 times that night. Had ripped out all of his IVs and tubes. There was literally blood all over the side. It was a mess. And he had fallen, and they had no assurance that he didn't hit his head, other than that he said he told them that he didn't.
You got a phone call. They have said that he fell. You're going back. Thank God you were an advocate for Cisco, because a lot of people don't have somebody there with them.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff would, he wouldn't be with us today. God had his hand on him and both of you, and what an amazing thing. But so you're back at back up there now, or en route.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm back up there finding the nurses, finding out what transpired that, while I was gone. And I had told the nurse, so my family was there. Again, this was when his cognitive decline went completely south, and he was just out of his mind.
So at this point, you've had a ischemic stroke. Now you have a brain bleed as well that we're dealing with. Wow. So things are really about to change, I'm sure, at this point in the story.
Yes. So, we were told initially that he would be there for possibly a couple days, at the most a week, but he was looking really good. Then he has the fall. They put in the EVD. He's at least not completely out of his mind anymore, but it wasn't good. But it was better than it was. So gradually, he is getting more and more intense head pain constantly, to the point where they have zero, they cannot control it whatsoever. Nothing was touching it. They had him on morphine. They had him on every, they were throwing everything imaginable at his head pain, and it wasn't touching it.
No, it wouldn't.
Which seemed very weird. But I knew very little about stroke, so I was like, maybe this is normal.
Right.
And so this went on for about a week and a half. They had brought in a physical therapist to try to, and he was doing pretty good with that, getting him, help, assisting him walking around the room. But the head pain was what was holding everything back. And it was just progressively getting worse, to the point where he couldn't even eat. So he's having progressively worse head pain. So March 24th, I believe it was. So this is two full weeks after his initial ischemic stroke. The day before, March 24th, his nurse is in there. She's trying to tell me that they want to send him home tomorrow. And I just don't know how that's going to be possible. And I'm just looking at her why are you saying this? He can't like you can't even control his head pain with morphine. What am I supposed to give him at home? Like he can't open his eyes, like, and now we know his eyesight was bothering him like so bad at that point, but we didn't know that. He didn't really, I think he was saying he was having double vision, but we didn't know how severe it was.
Hardly anybody.
Yeah. And so there was just a lot of like, there was something seriously wrong. We didn't know what specifically. And it was just insane to me that she kept saying that they were going to send him home, because I'm looking at him like, there's no, like, how? I just remember he had to use the bathroom, and I had told the nurse that he needed, she was like, I'll be in there in a minute. And then he just like wet himself in the bed, and I knew, I was like, what? Something's like, something's wrong. Because he would never, and he was just like, he never said anything. He just, went, and he was just laying there in it. And I didn't even know that he had until I went over there, and I was like, oh my goodness. I think it was at that point he went completely unresponsive. And then it got very serious very fast again. Like it felt like, the first emergency room, when they told us he had the stroke, it was that, but like 10 times worse. So they had to intubate him. His neurosurgeon, who only does like morning rounds kind of thing, was suddenly there. And she was telling me they were going to have to do a craniotomy in the morning to relieve pressure in his head.
Y'all both been through a lot. They need to hear this and know that they're not alone in that moment we're talking about. Is very scary.
And that's the thing. I feel like she has gone through as much or even more than I have, in that way of being helpless and seeing. I can't even imagine if roles were reversed, like what I would be like, how I would be, so to see her and the kids go through that is just insane. Yeah.
This is just a over the top, really tough story that you both went through. And obviously, Melissa, you're kind of rolling through this, so to speak, on your own and having to make a lot of decisions. But now they're saying, hey, we're going to have to do an emergency craniotomy. And that has a lot of risk to it as well. There's no joke. And I'm sure they explained it to you, but in a quick, super fast way that is would be hard for anybody, but they are in a hurry now. So.
Yeah. Yes. So they're going to do the craniotomy. He also had spiked a temperature that day, kind of out of the blue. So then all of a sudden we're code sepsis on top of he's completely unresponsive. They're, taking blood tests. Anyway, the team that deals with infections, they're in there. Yeah. They're in there. And the nurse thankfully we had an angel of a nurse that night. I think he only had her one other time, but she was phenomenal and was like communicating as much as she could to us the entire time, which thank God, because like it was terrifying. And his parents were there with me, and we were just like, what is going on? And she was very communicative, had told us before that, she's like, they're about to call code sepsis. She's like, just to let you know, it's about to get like crazy in here. And she, and it was just so, like, that preparation for that kind of stuff is huge in those moments, because you don't know, like, I don't even know what code sepsis was. And what that entailed, had no clue.
She made just saying, I know from experience that those couple words for you at least set your mind in motion that it takes us. The fear is still there, but it just kind of settles you into this is about to get real again. And when those people start rushing in, lay the bed down super flat, I mean, all those things happen and everybody's in a hurry. That's a scary, scary moment.
It is. Yeah, it really is.
So thank God she was there in that moment.
Mhm.
You know, professional caregivers need to hear this as well and
Mhm.
understand that those moments like that mean so much.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And she stayed right by us, as much as she could. If they didn't, weren't needing her at the moment, she was right by us, just kind of just talking to us, and also explaining what they were doing, which again was huge because it's not like we could ask them if we tried to, like, they're in their mode of trying to basically save him. And
Absolutely.
and you're just kind of off to the sidelines, like just watching and not really knowing what's going on, if this is as bad as you're not wanting to believe it is, but knowing that it is. And anyway, so that was so huge in that moment, and that whole night. So yeah, he was intubated completely. I remember his parents wanted to stay that night. And I went, I had a hotel like right by the hospital, because where we live from that hospital, it's about a 30-minute drive. And I just felt like I needed to be right there all the time, especially after
Absolutely.
his fall. But to just have a place where I could, just get away for a couple hours and sleep, like get good sleep. And so anyway, I went to the hotel and I just remember, there's no way I'm going to get through this without breaking down, but maybe if I say that, then I'll be okay. Like, even those drives to the hotel were really, like, that was the moment that I could, like, just kind of lose it. And that night, like, I knew his life was hanging in the balance. Like, it was a very delicate situation. And I remember having the conversation with the Lord, like I don't want to lose him. I don't want this to be the story. And I had believed that whole time, like, that him passing away was not going to be our story. I've strongly believed that the whole time, but it was at the point where it was like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe like this is looking very different than what I thought. And that very much can be true. As much as we want to believe something or do believe something, like, that's not always how it turns out. And I've known that from, other friends who've lost a spouse and, from cancer, and fully believed that the Lord was going to heal them, and it just didn't turn out that way. So I'm very aware of that. And I felt like he just was like, you, like, give him to me. Like, I have him, and you need to let go. And I did, in that moment, just was like, you know best, but please. So the next morning, they were doing the craniotomy at 7:30 in the morning, and we had a couple people, our church, like he had said, we weren't super involved at that point, so we really didn't know anybody. But I had texted, I think it was the children's pastor. I had her number, and so I had texted her at the beginning of all this happening, and had kept her up to date with how he was doing. And so she texted me that morning and said they were going to come down, asked if we wanted them to come pray with us, and I was like, please. So they came and they prayed with us, and it was, meant the world. Again, like, just a beautiful moment in the midst of hell, really. And he made it through the surgery. neurosurgeon had fully expected to have to remove, a section of the skull to relieve the pressure and that they would have to replace it, however long down the line. And she told me that that was most likely going to be the case. They got in there, basically put his brain through, she said, like a car wash. There was no source of the bleed.
Wow.
So there was no wound that they needed to, that was causing it. But there was a lot of blood that had built up in there. And so she basically washed that off, and they were able to replace the skull piece. They didn't have to go back in there, which was huge, but it wasn't even swelling that was the problem. It was this massive built up blood in his head. Which is, I feel very indicative of a almost like a bruising, from hitting your head. So he was intubated for probably, I don't remember, it was 4 or 5 days after. Again, everything in that room was night and day different, with how the hospital, the staff treated us, from that point. And it was kind of awful, to be honest, because they were so you knew that it was just such a different scenario than what it was before, but I didn't know how or why. But having a craniotomy is that takes everything 50 steps back.
Right.
And
yeah, you're about to have a long journey ahead of you. And everybody knows that. They just haven't let you know yet.
Yeah. So I was still pretty naive, I guess, to what had just happened, but I knew everyone was coming in with how are you? It was just such a different treatment of me, especially of oh, why are you being so nice? And so
now you're making me even more nervous.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So then they were having the conversations of he was doing well on the vent, they were lowering it and he was breathing well. They were having to use less and less assistance, I guess. But then one of the doctors came in one morning and he's like, I need to talk to you. He's like, it's going to be, a really hard conversation. And I'm like, okay. And so he left to go, do something. And then he came back and he sits next to me and he's like, and he had been there, he was critical care doctor, I think is what he was. So he was very invested in Cisco's situation from the start. Cause he was, I think, the same age anyway. So he comes in and he's telling me this is the progression of what is going to happen. He's going to need tracheostomy. And basically telling me this is what's next. Again, thank you, but also what? I, at that point, I'm he's doing well. They're lowering it more and more. And he's yeah, but he's this is, what's naturally what happens. He's been on it long enough to where he's not going to be able to handle being off of it. And it's just, it's been too long and he's going to need a tracheostomy. And he was I'm just telling you now because they're going to try to, I can't remember what he had said. Basically they don't like to tell you until it's a life-saving situation.
Yeah, and then they're going to ask for your permission in that moment as well. So it's better to make the decision ahead of time. Yeah.
Right. So, I'm in a looking back, I'm glad he did that as much as I wanted to punch him between the eyes at that moment. I wasn't a big posting about my life or anything like that. But I felt the Lord very much moved me to share this whole situation and get as many people praying from the jump. So I did. And there were like thousands. We've lived in a lot of places. We never liked that about our story. But in that moment, it made so much sense. And like, thank you, Lord. There was just so many people praying for him that was like meant everything that entire time. Just knowing, I think I never had an appreciation for prayer and for praying for others until that time, because I never knew how much that meant, knowing that there were literally thousands praying for him.
It's a lot more than just seeing hands going up when there's actually a heartfelt prayer coming.
Yeah. So when I got the tracheostomy conversation, that was what I did. I went and I was like, this is what they're telling me. I know this will devastate him to wake up, and I understand that this is like naturally the progression of where he is, like where this is going. But I also know like God is able to not have that be what happens. And so we prayed and he came off that ventilator like a rock star, like no issues whatsoever. Then it was so at that point he hadn't eaten in over 2 weeks. He was skeletal. Like he wasn't a big guy to begin with before this happened. Like he didn't, 10 pounds would have made a really big difference on him. And he had lost over 30. He looked like, he came from a meth house. Like it was shocking. And then they shaved his beard, for the ventilator. And so he just was so tiny and frail looking. And I remember we joked about that, like, oh, he's going to be like, the thing he's going to be mad about the most after all this is the fact that they shaved his beard.
Yeah. They worked hard on that,
Yeah. He was very proud of his beard.
I got emotional when I looked at the pictures you shared as well. And he did. I just walking miracle right now.
Yeah.
There's no
crazy.
doubt.
Yeah.
So they took him off the ventilator.
And then they go to do the swallow test for him to be able to eat. And he did not pass that. And so they had the NG tube in. They kept getting the calorie amount that he was needing wrong.
Yeah.
So he just kept losing more and more weight. And every day it felt like someone would come in and they're like, oh my gosh, like, concerned about his weight. And then they're like, oh, they have him on the wrong calorie. I'm like, how does this keep happening? Like, so that was really frustrating. Because that's completely out of our control. I have no idea what they're giving him, how much, like none of that, or how much he should be getting. Like you think that they know these things and are doing it correctly. So he didn't pass the swallow test. And so then we had to wait for, it's like a certain amount of days before they try again. And from how it was explained to me, like the longer you don't use those muscles, the more of a chance it's going to be of you not being able to use them the longer you go, because your brain forgets like really quickly. And so they weren't able to come for probably like 4 or 5 extra days from when they were supposed to come back to have him do another swallow test. So they're all giving me the talks of he's going to need a port in his stomach. And that's how, this, like, it's been this amount of time. He's not going to be able to swallow. This is where this is going. And again, I was like, absolutely not. If he comes to and is not, like, he'd been literally having dreams of cheeseburgers, like for over a month now. And I was like, if he wakes up and he's being fed through a port in his stomach, he is going to, like, I just knew that was going to just tank his recovery of, like, that would devastate him. Again, I know that is the story for a lot of people. And I'm not saying that that's like, those measures aren't, necessary and life-saving for many people. Like, nothing against, this is just him specifically and me knowing him. So I went to social media again, asked everyone, like, please pray that he is able to pass his next swallow test. And a bunch of people prayed. She came back to do it and he totally passed it, like, no issues. And me and his mom literally we were like cheerleaders, screaming and like jumping up and down because it was such a huge moment of victory, honestly. Seeing him jump that hurdle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's
huge.
so many, it is.
So were you conscious during that time? I mean, you had to be to do the swallow test. Do you remember that moment during that time?
No, I don't. I honestly don't remember pretty much everything from me being in the hospital. I remember the last, maybe, I don't even know what it would be, the last week, last couple of days. I remember being in the hospital. Of course, they had their visiting hours, and then those would end at whatever it was, 8 or 9 o'clock. And so I remember a night or two of just being alone in the dark in the hospital by myself, and those were dark nights, literally and figuratively, for sure, because that's when I really kind of started to think and to really wonder, like, what is happening. First of all, how did this happen? What is going to happen in the future? What am I going to look like? What are things going to look like? I really had no idea, and so there were definitely some scary nights that I remember. And again, I don't know how many nights. It feels like a lot of them are kind of all jumbled up into one. And I remember I was doing some rehab and some physical therapy and stuff in the hospital. So I remember bits and pieces of that, but not a lot. I really don't start remembering more till I was more in outpatient rehab at Day Neuro. That's when things start kind of coming back a little bit more. And even then, that's fuzzy. Obviously, I don't remember you being there, so yeah, there's just a lot of fuzziness and blank spaces and stuff like that.
So there was an answered prayer there, Melissa, with the not having to go with a peg tube was what that's called. And we'll talk later about that because I actually did have one. But anyways, answered prayers there. Things at that point, I'm guessing it's like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of light, but there's still probably a lot of questions. How long were you in the ICU unit?
So it was like a month exactly total that he was in the ICU.
Very similar stories.
Wow. Yeah.
So where are you at this point then? Okay, he's passed the swallow test. What's next?
So after that, he got moved to the step down from ICU, but not in like general hospital. He was kind of at the end of the like floor. The nurse's station was like in the, way down here. And, I was still like very hyper aware or whatever, tense about him getting out of bed and falling again. Because at that point, that was like a death situation if he were to fall and hit his head. And we would be in the ICU if he made it, for God knows how long. So I was like, And thankfully, he came out of the craniotomy in a completely different state.
Mm-hmm.
That I wasn't fully, it took a long time to really like grasp where he was. So thankfully, he wasn't getting out of bed. But again, it was just a scary, because I'm like, he's just so far, and they're like only coming to check on him, every couple hours, and
Right.
but he was doing so much better at that point. I mean, so much better as in from being comatose and not, unresponsive. Like it was really bad. But for us at that time, it was like, he's doing great.
Right. Yeah, micro wins at that point are everything.
Exactly.
So even though he probably wasn't talking a lot, probably wasn't moving a whole lot, all the other things and the life-saving measures had kind of slowed down for a minute, and we're kind of in this, so what I feel like, even for me, was just a kind of a resting moment for a second of like, okay, let's breathe. More stuff is still coming.
Yeah. It's definitely felt like a clearing in the woods at that, time. So, so he from there went into inpatient rehab.
Okay.
And there, ironically enough, they are like vigilant about anybody falling or getting out of bed. So he had someone 24/7 in that room with him.
Wow.
Watching his every move. They were like, he will not fall in here. And I was like, thank you.
Well, that gives you a chance to rest finally, because I'm sure from the minute you got that phone call till right then when you heard that, you probably slept very little.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And every morning, like dreading, if I did come home and sleep, it was like, dreading looking at my phone. Like I would sleep with it right by my head. Like, ugh.
I think most people will relate.
So inpatient was a totally different situation. Nurses are amazing. Like they are absolutely amazing people. And
well, they spend all their time with you. You see the doctor for
that's crazy what they do.
Part of their job also is to bridge that gap between you and the doctor. They're amazing people.
Absolutely.
It's just like anything. There's good and bad. But for the most part, I respect that field big time. So anyways, sorry to interrupt.
No, they're good.
Yeah.
But we're in inpatient now. And when you do
get the odd, the outlier nurse who is terrible, like, don't feel bad about, being like that. I don't want, and it was, like, I literally was like, dude, I do not want her help, like, treating him or having, and
that's your right. You have a right as a patient, and you being an advocate. The thing is that most people, well, first of all, they don't realize that they do have some rights, and there is a borderline. There's a line there that can be crossed where you become a combative patient or caretaker. But for the most part, you do have those rights. You're in there. You have a right to good care, and for them to tell you everything about your situation that you ask. There is no question that should be off limits when it comes to your health, even though you do feel like you're imposing. Right. It should never be that way. I think that was just a good spot to drop that for anybody that's watching or ends up in that position. So again, just it's awesome that you were there for him during that time, Melissa. I know that takes a lot of strength. You're dealing with so many things on so many multiple levels, and you're still a mom too, and your children, and having to bridge that gap for your family. Not let them see some of the harder things that are going on, and trying to keep faithful. All of those things. I mean, there's just a I can relate to that on multiple levels. Although I'm in the same kind of place as Cisco, where there's a lot of things I don't remember that Amber had to fill in the blanks for me.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to shift a little bit right here because we're in inpatient, and this is really kind of, for lack of better words, this is my jam. This is where I like to spend my time now, is in inpatient and outpatient. And I also met Cisco at Day Neuro, even though he doesn't remember. I remember him. I'm sure that's still a cloud for you.
Mhm.
But do you remember, Cisco, them getting you up out of bed and having to go and do things and getting out of not being comfortable?
Yeah, I remember vaguely some things, and thankfully Melissa had the wherewithal to like take a lot of video and picture
That's so
while
cool.
I was there, and so I can look back at that, and some of it I look at it and I do remember. Well, okay, yeah, I kind of remember this, and some of it I don't remember at all. I'm like, I'm glad that she took video of that, you know. But yeah, I was. It wasn't for very long that I was in rehab. What, like
It was 3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks, and then how much?
Same here.
And an hour or two a day or something.
It was, well, it depended, but usually you would do an hour of each of all three therapies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't like I was there. It wasn't like day Neuro where it was an all day deal, you know.
Excuse me.
I remember, and man, at first I was like, you know, in a wheelchair or a walker, you know, shuffling around. My balance was atrocious, obviously, and I would start walking one direction and it just end up like across the room, you know, like a
Right.
drunken sailor. And you know, but I do remember the one physical therapist in particular, like she was great, super nice, super helpful, encouraging, you know, and really did a lot. Was really helped us a lot, and was super friendly, super thankful for her. You know, and I started to get there. Of course, like Melissa said, I lost probably 30 plus pounds.
Yeah.
And I wasn't gaining, although I was eating more and eating, I guess, more solid foods. I wasn't necessarily gaining a lot of weight
No.
or muscle at that time, so I was still pretty weak and frail.
You
You know,
probably
and it was
lost a ton of muscle mass just in
Yeah.
people don't realize how much, not only just the not eating, but then not moving and being in a bed.
Yeah.
oh yeah,
All of those core muscles and your back
Yep.
muscles, all of those things just deteriorate and go away very quickly. So
very fast.
you know, that rehab is, I mean, there are a lot of things going on.
Intense.
Yeah,
Did,
for sure.
at this point, Melissa, were you starting to see anything that was hopeful, or were you still in a pretty heavy state of worry?
So inpatient was like, I felt like it was I don't even know how to describe it, like a roller coaster, but no downs.
Right.
Like it was just like, whoa. I mean, it was insane seeing how quickly he went. I mean, we went from him not even being able to feed himself. He was in a diaper. He was not walking whatsoever, had, you know, I mean, pretty much back to zero in every way. He wasn't able to speak. You know, the tube like messes up your throat muscles.
Oh yeah.
So that took a long time for him to be able to, you know, and I again, no one really told me that. So I'm like, why can't he speak? Like, why, you know, and if it was a whisper, and we were like, you know, had our ears to his lips, basically trying to figure out what he was saying. And so there was a lot of those things where like you have no idea why they're in the state they're in. They were very, very careful to give you too much hope.
No one wants to give you hope, which is why we do what we do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I'm
for sure.
excited to have you all on board with that, which we'll talk about shortly. But yeah, hope is, I've talked about it a lot. even though they're hopeful and they're like, oh man, Cisco's doing really good. And probably in their huddles and behind closed doors, there's conversations going on or are conversations going on about the improvements, but you're not going to get to hear those.
Right.
No, for sure. For sure.
Yeah. So, but every day I felt like there was significant progress being made. And that, like, and not that there weren't times where it was, where you step back from the situation and you're like,
Can't believe
what?
this.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening still.
Because there definitely are those moments where,
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's so exciting and like absolutely mind blowing how quickly, he was progressing and doing so good, it was also just like this, like, it's just the weirdest thing.
I don't think that feeling really goes away I hate to say it, but it doesn't really go away anytime soon either.
Yeah.
I'm 2 years post. I know that I still have days that I think about things. We just had a recent scare that ended up being okay, but the same thing for Amber and for sure River, being young like he is. That trauma kind of sits there for a minute.
Yeah.
And just the disbelief anyways for me is a constant thing. I go out or push on a day and my brain says, hey, you know what? We're not doing all that. And I'm like, what is the deal? What is wrong with me? And it takes a little bit for me to remember, I've been through, I've got damage that's going to be long lasting. So, but there's a lot of cool things that happen in inpatient. And for me, there were a lot of things that kind of started changing as I started coming more, aware of what was going on. There's so many things I can relate to in that moment of just the weird moments in the dark and the diplopia and almost feeling blind. And I really didn't say much to people on that either. It's very important for people to understand that you do go back to zero. So everything that you learned as a baby and all that time of falling and standing up or learning to walk and learning your midline and how to distinguish your spatial awareness, all of those things had to be learned on top of, everybody is different. There's no roadmap. I think that's what makes recovery is so hard for a lot of people to understand. They want 100%, yes or no answer. And with stroke, there really isn't that 100% necessarily recovery or an answer on anything.
Yeah.
So for me, I remember you, Cisco. You were really quiet. You didn't say much. Pretty withdrawn still at that point. I could tell that your brain was working in overtime, trying to make those connections again and say, hey, this is where we're at and this is what we're doing. But I do remember you working on getting up and getting down and doing things as I came in and out of there over time. And you look so great today. I mean, just what a miracle. What an awesome story to this point. I mean, hard story, but where you're at now is so amazing, knowing what I saw when I first met you, because at that point you still hadn't gained back your weight, muscle mass wasn't there yet. And just like many of us, your brain was trying to heal itself. So there's just a ton of things going on, and visiting with me or even knowing that I'm in the room wasn't part of the important things that it was trying to work right then. It was trying to get all your other things back together,
Right.
So what an amazing thing. You look so good today. I love that. So at what point during your day neuro experience, when did that start coming back? Or do you remember, Melissa? I mean, how long was that into the journey that really started seeing that faster progress?
Yeah. So he, by the time he left inpatient, he was able to walk with a walker, but we had, the belt, like, had to make sure that was, like, he needed assistance.
From what I could remember, I do remember them, just me getting along with all of them really well, and they were just super helpful and encouraging, and pushed me, and challenged me and all that, which I needed, at the time, obviously, and I enjoyed that. I like the fact that they were trying to push me. They weren't trying to
Mhm.
coddle me and
Yeah.
protect me and stuff like that. So yeah, that was good. And there were some things that were really challenging, and other things that weren't, especially with like was it occupational. I had to do a lot of like puzzles and try to draw things or try to put things together with my hands. And man, my vision was so terrible that it was really difficult for me to, I would see things that weren't there, or I wouldn't see things that were there. And, it was tricky for sure at first. And it took a while, even after that, for my vision to really start coming back. But, thankfully it did. And I know that they were a huge part of that for sure.
Yeah, no. I always try to give them credit, and I think that more facilities should take a page out of their book and learn how to do some of the amazing things they do. I just I cannot speak enough volumes. Being a little bit more in the community now and seeing different levels of care and what they were able to do with us is just amazing in a short amount of time. So there's only a certain amount of time you get in a therapy situation like that, and and what they're able to do in a month, and then if you get longer than that, up to 2 months and 3 months, is amazing. In a short amount of time, how much with the right proper care and the right therapy, the gains that you can make.
Yeah,
At
for
the
sure.
same time, with the opposite end of that, and the brain not being stimulated properly to make those neurons and everything fire correctly again and wire up back up, you can also stay in the same place or have totally different outcomes. So um, people should be aware of that, and I think we were really blessed to land in that place for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And I know
Uh,
that a lot of those doctors in maybe those facilities will say you only have like this window of time to be able to rehab and recover, 2 or 3 months or whatever it is that they give you. But I think a lot of that is just dictated by what the insurance is willing to pay
mhm.
for you. That's not necessarily true because your brain and your body are gonna recover. I mean, for
Forever.
years, yeah, forever afterwards. Honestly, obviously, we're not. I'm not advocating for them to be paying for rehab for the rest of your life, but 2, 3 months. I don't think it's enough. I think it should go longer than that. But so much of our healthcare system is just dictated by what the insurance is willing to pay for or not,
Yeah, there's
and
a break
it's
in the
just,
system there for sure that needs to
Absolutely.
change. And I think what you said is 100% right as far as the rehab needing to go longer for everybody on that end, not forever, but at least to get you past the hump and be able to finish your therapy in the home setting or move on to that next level in the continuum of care and rehabilitation. Because a lot of people aren't as motivated as we are.
Mhm.
And then when they hear that there's this plateau, which I believe is, somebody said it really well the other day, my friend Nicole did, that really that's just a place for you to sit, catch your breath, and get going again. It's not that plateau, and they describe that plateau as being a place where that's as far as you're going to go. Well, I don't believe that, and I've had to God has blessed me to be in a place where I've seen some amazing things and see people 8 years to 20 years post still learning and gaining things. So
Right.
I think it's really important for people to understand that you have to be self-motivated to make these gains. But as long as you are pushing, your brain is going to go in that direction too, hopefully. And that
Yeah.
goes from some of the harder cases too of people that have lost so much. You just have to work really hard at it. You have to want
Right.
it. So,
Yeah, that's the thing.
kind of getting closer to wrapping up here, but there were some things I kind of wanted to go over and definitely didn't want to miss today. A couple of times we've mentioned your faith, Christianity, before and during. Where are you at now, kind of in that walk of life, and where do where do you see yourselves moving forward from here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, our walk is night and day different from before the stroke till now, for sure. There was a period of time before the stroke where we were still Christians and all of that, but we weren't necessarily walking strong. We weren't part of a church or had really strong fellowship. Some things that happened where we just kind of walked away a little bit. Thankfully we didn't get into anything or do anything that would really be permanent or anything like that. But, like I said before, like before the stroke, maybe 6 months before or something was when we started to go to the church we go to now. And that's when we really were really thinking about getting involved, and our walks were becoming stronger because of that. And so I felt like we were like heading in the right direction, you know, and then the Lord just did this and really accelerated that, even more, and so.
I think, sorry,
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Like, there had been a series of like hurts, I guess, for the, years prior to, and we had started, kind of healing from those things. And I feel like the stroke, oddly enough, like healed parts of us that like it healed parts of us that only that kind of a situation could have done.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like,
Right.
trying to explain it as
It's very hard to explain, but I do understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Lord knew that's what we needed to get to where we're at right now.
It is one of those things that can do one or the other. It can either you can allow it to heal you, or you can just
embitter you.
Right.
And yeah, it really puts you at a crossroads of you gotta choose which way to go. And thankfully, we chose the Lord. But yeah, I felt like we were going in the right direction. Like things were kind of falling into place. We were wanting and thinking, and praying about being more involved with the church and stuff like that. But obviously, Lord knew that we needed this to really get us involved and really get serious about the Lord. So I'm thankful for that. And sometimes, yeah, God just makes those decisions for us because He knows that we're stubborn and slow, and we need that just kick in the butt, to get us where we need to be. And so,
well, how much more peace is there in the fact that, and this is why one thing I love to try to get across to people that especially are struggling a little bit with it, but how awesome is it to be able to know that you're not in control of everything, and to be able to lay that at his feet and just be like, hey, what do you want from me today? What are we doing? Where are we going? Because I feel like the things that I have tried to do on my own at one point or another were pretty hollow, that just the depth of things that are important now and the things that I do seem like they're so much more fulfilling. So yeah, it's awesome being able to just know I'm not in control. And I still fight that from time to time. I probably my own worst enemy, but pretty neat. You guys also have worked on a podcast some. You've had done some advocacy work. I mean, y'all, there's been some desire to do some more work with the community. All that wrapping around, seeing you in day neuro, and then all of a sudden I get a call from you, and you're like, "Hey, what's going on?" And thought that, and now we're talking about y'all working directly with us with the Broken Road Project, and furthering the mission that Amber and I and Luke and Jen have been working really hard at growing. I'm excited to have both of you on board because I can't think of, again, anybody better to share this mission to help others than people that have gone through it firsthand and understand the hard things, what it takes, and the blessings that we have afterwards,
Yeah.
and those things are hard to describe. A lot of people want to blame things, and a lot of people have a hard time relaxing into that or even seeing any light. I feel like it would be a waste of time that I was given in the breath of my lungs to not spend that time helping others. So really excited to see where this moves with y'all. And uh, Melissa, it's just I feel your story so much in my heart and can't imagine that moment. And I'm very proud of you for rising above what could have been something that really held you in a dark spot for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's amazing. And the same thing with you, Cisco, just uh, the determination and the faith that things are going to get better, because you as well could have just said, you know what, I don't really want to try that hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And so really excited to see what we do in the future. We can wrap it here, and I'll ask the question like I always do, but today's going to be pretty neat because I have both these. So 2 different answers, 2 different perspectives. You first, Cisco, for somebody that has had a stroke or traumatic brain injury or anything, any neurological trauma, what's some words of hope that you would give them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big thing is not to compare yourself to others, because everybody who has a stroke or a traumatic brain injury is different. They're gonna, they were their health before, and then how exactly it happened and where it happened, and then their health afterwards is all gonna be completely different. So it's easy to compare yourself to somebody who, like, oh man, that person had a stroke 6 months ago. Look how they're doing. They're doing great. Or this person's doing terrible after 6 months, and I'm doing so much better, but it's don't use those other people's wins as comparison or as you're competing with them, but use those wins as inspiration, that you can get there too. God has a different plan and a different purpose for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And no 2 people are going to be the same in that. And so I think that's something that's important to learn and to remember, because like in rehab and stuff like that, you see obviously all kinds of different patients and different things that happen to them and where they're at physically and mentally. And it's easy to compare yourself and to ask God, why am I like this and they're doing so much better? Or why are they like this and I'm doing so much better? But God has a different plan, a different story for everybody. And we just have to remember that and trust him that he's gonna do it. And he's got a plan and a purpose for you, even in that pain, even in those setbacks. He's gonna do something. He doesn't subtract without multiplying later. And that's one thing that we need to remember for sure.
That's well said, Cisco. I think I agree with that 100%. Thank you for that. That's actually that's original here on the show. I hadn't heard that exact perspective, and I love it. I love it.
Thanks.
How about you, Melissa, for people that are on the other side of the bed that are going through this, caretakers and family that have families and stuff, what would you say to them? What are some words of hope or wisdom that you could share with them through everything you've been through?
I think a lot of people told me like many, many times. They'd always say, take care of yourself.
Right.
Make sure you're taking care of yourself. And I always felt like, what does that mean? Like, I'm just trying to survive at this moment. And, and I still to this day don't fully know, like, if that's just like the, like thing to say. Or if there's like something specific. I'm guessing it's probably like, make sure you're eating, make sure you're sleeping, things like that, like that.
Right.
Which are very important.
Yes.
But there was a lot of things that I needed that like nobody could give me. It's a very lonely place to be in. Even people that have been, I mean, I didn't personally know anyone who, or that I was close to, that had been through even close to a situation, like exactly what we were going through. But so that can feel very lonely. A lot of the advice, a lot of the things that are told to you, like they can apply in some ways, but in a lot of ways it doesn't. And it's very hard to even vocalize what you need. I think if you don't have, a support system and a community, like you kind of have to make it, and even if that just means at this point praying for it, like God will bring you the people. And that's exactly what he has done for us. There's a lot of things that people don't understand unless they've walked that same road. And, I think just being like being honest with the Lord of what you need and what you're going through, like he can do the things that nobody else can do for you.
Right. So we're not alone, even when you
No,
think you
we
are.
really aren't. And I know that that's like the thing that Christians love to say is you're not alone and the Lord's always there. And it never, like, it truly does take on such a huge different meaning when you are truly alone.
For sure. Well, and I think those are good words. Just well, that's still, I realize it's partially cliche, but it's also something we always say. And I think at those moments when you really need it, that's important to know. And
Absolutely.
I think that you said it very perfectly when you said that mankind's going to let you down and God won't. It is a tough moment to realize that all of these things that we feel like that we've manifested on our own and things we've done, we have no control over that. And there's peace, like we've talked about before, and just leaning into God and having faith that whatever his plan is going to be what it is. Thank you both so much for being open, honest, sharing your story. I know that that's not always the easiest thing to do, but it's so important to do that. And I feel it in my heart that this is meant to be. This is just the beginning of a lot of really neat things in the future. So
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
God bless both of you.
You too.
Yeah, you
Thank
too, man.
for having
Yeah,
us.
thank you so much.
I'll do my best one day at a time on the broken road, on a broken road.